Before Leaked Labs shipped their first product to paying customers, the founders, Christina and Alexis Androulakis, they were actually known across the entire social media space as the Lipstick Lesbians.
Why are we called the Lipstick Lesbians? We used to have a beauty brand, and my brilliant wife said, we're lesbians, we sell lipstick. We need to be the Lipstick Lesbians.
By 2025, they were appearing on countless podcasts, they were featured in interviews with magazines, and they were also being given awards and also being acknowledged as like Women of the Year. But who were the Lipstick Lesbians before all of this happened, before Leaked Labs and their first launch and the controversy behind it? So that's what we're talking about today. So the question, who were they before Leaked Labs? It's not rhetorical at all. I'm genuinely curious, and I've been curious about them for a while. The version that we know, with 1.75 million followers across all their social platforms, it is a curated presentation of who they are. And I want to be precise about something before we go any further, because it matters how you receive this entire video. There is nothing inherently wrong with curating a public narrative about who you are. It's done all the time. I mean, politicians do it, social media influencers do it, Hollywood actors, they do it. Every creator does it. Every brand does it. The Lipstick Lesbians are not unique in that regard. When your entire value proposition is, especially that value proposition that got you 1.75 million followers, built on a promise of radical transparency, that is something that they have been preaching from day one since they went viral as the Lipstick Lesbians. Transparency, telling their audience what the beauty industry won't tell them. On being unfiltered, unbiased, completely honest, and unsponsored, a voice in a space full of noise and sponsorships and, let's face it, dishonesty. The curation of your own story becomes subject to the same scrutiny you apply to everyone else's. Today, I'm going to do what I always do here. I'm going to follow the receipts. We're going to be looking at the credentials, what has been claimed, and what the documented record actually shows. We're going to look at the first brand that the Lipstick Lesbians launched, the one that existed for 6 years before Leaked Labs even existed. And honestly, a brand that most people had never heard of. And we're going to look at their masterclass that they offer. We're going to look at the certification language that they use with that masterclass and what it actually means for people who actually paid for this masterclass. And we're going to look at Leaked Labs. I have a whole series on Leaked Labs, but we're going to dive a little bit into that too. We're not going to look at just the product of Leaked Labs, though. We're going to look at the promises that were made around Leaked Labs and where those promises meet the evidence. We are doing a full forensic audit, and it starts at the beginning, the very beginning of the Lipstick Lesbians story. So first, I want to go over the timeline. Before we get into the evidence, I want to give you the complete event history. You cannot evaluate a pattern without seeing the full pattern in front of you, and the pattern here is everything. In 2006, Alexis begins working at a NARS beauty counter inside of a Lord & Taylor in Ridgewood, New Jersey. This is her entry point into the beauty industry. In 2010, Christina graduates with her bachelor's degree from Brooklyn College. In 2011, Alexis graduates from the Fashion Institute of Technology, or FIT, or FIT is what some people refer to it as. She has a Bachelor of Applied Science in Cosmetics, Fragrance, and Marketing. In 2013 through 2018, Alexis holds 3 separate positions with product development in the title Shiseido, Mesa, New World Beauty, approximately 1 year each. In 2014, Christina graduates with her master's from Brooklyn College. That same year, Alexis and Christina meet for the first time and have their first date. And Alexis tells Christina it is her dream to have her own beauty brand. In 2016, Alexis begins consulting work through a beauty builder. It's a beauty business consulting firm. There is reason to believe this was her own consulting business. So more on that in a moment. Also in 2016, Christina begins to pursue her PhD. Now in 2018, Alexis and Christina, they co-founded Fempower Beauty, their first beauty brand. In 2021, Christina establishes the Lipstick Lesbians TikTok account. That same year, Christina also graduates with her PhD. In December of 2022, after Alexis had lost her hearing, Alexis and Christina debut their first cosmetic breakdown video, covering the new Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Foundation. This is the video that changes everything. It goes viral for the Lipstick Lesbians. In late 2022 or in early 2023, it's a little bit wishy-washy with this. You can't really pinpoint an exact time, but by their own account, they had a financial crisis and they moved back in with Christina's parents in 2025. So we have quite a few events. Let's Learn About Beauty launches as a digital masterclass platform. It is also good to note that in June of 2024, per Alexis's LinkedIn, leaked labs. In July of 2025, Fempower Beauty officially closes its doors. In February of 2026, the Lipstick Lesbians announced the Leaked Labs launch. March 6, 2026, the very first launch of Leaked Labs drops, the Amplify Flexi Powder Discs. March 13th, 2026, the Lipstick Lesbians have their State of the Union address for Leaked Labs. On April 1st, a formal response is finally posted about the entire Leaked Labs controversy. That's the whole timeline. That is the map. Now let's audit it. We're going to look at a credential audit, and this is something that I want to spend quite a bit of time on because we have heard a lot about the Lipstick Lesbians over the years. Honestly, this is where significant gaps appear between what is claimed and what the evidence actually has to show. We're going to start with Alexis's own words.
Are you a chemist? I'm actually a product developer. Basically, your chemist would sit over here, your marketing team is over here, and I'm like a translator, and I take that information, I disseminate it from the marketing team to the chemist. Viral. Our audience was hashtag beauty talk, doing it from such a corporate lens with almost 17 years of my experience. Also,
"20 years appears consistently, actually more consistently than anything. Even in their response video, Alexis had to mention she has over 20 years doing this. It is across every single platform that she is represented on, in almost every professional introduction of her as well. Now, let me show you her LinkedIn and what I found. Her first entry was NARS Beauty Counter, Lord and Taylor, Ridgewood, New Jersey. She was a retail makeup artist. She was there for nearly 3 years. Side note, and this is something I really wanted to point out, and is that Alexis has claimed for a very long time that she is actually a professional makeup artist. Although her experience has only ever been in a retail beauty counter space, she does not note anywhere on her LinkedIn that she was a professional makeup artist or a bridal makeup artist, just that she was a makeup artist at the NARS beauty counter. Now, that's not to say that you can learn makeup artistry on the job. A lot of people do it. However, she shows no other experience outside of the realm of the NARS beauty counter when it comes to makeup application. She didn't receive a license in aesthetics or cosmetology. And she doesn't show any accreditations or classes that she has taken for makeup artistry education. Furthermore, in a retail setting, one does not need a cosmetology or esthetician's license to be a makeup artist. And that is also true for the state of New Jersey. I had to look it up because in the state of New York where I live, it is also true. You are allowed to be a practicing makeup artist if you are doing it for a retail specifically. So like Ulta, Sephora, at a beauty counter at a department store. But that doesn't automatically make you a practicing makeup artist. Okay, so from there, she worked at Drom Fragrances, and this was as an intern during college, which is also something to note. She moved through a lot of positions in marketing, business management, and she approximately did 2 years at Procter & Gamble with the title Junior Account Manager, which in most corporate structures, that actually means sales. You're an account manager for sales. Then between 2013 and 2018, she had 3 positions that included the title Product Development. That was with Shiseido, Mesa, and New World Beauty. Each time that she worked with one of these brands, it was for a year each. So that's 3 years total in product development across 3 different brands. I also want to note something she has touched on herself. There were some employment gaps that she had as well after college, and she supplemented her income through a beauty builder, which is a business consulting and services company for beauty brands that offer fractional C-suite services, including sales, education, product development, artistry, retail, and broad development. She listed herself under their umbrella, but there's reason to believe that a beauty builder is actually her own consulting company, even though LinkedIn is a little bit fuzzy on that. I am not going to speculate about why she had short stints at Shiseido, Mesa, and New World Beauty. That it can happen. That's also not what this audit is about, okay? It would not be fair to do so, to stipulate, to make an insinuation about why she was there. Short tenures do happen for countless reasons in any professional field, okay? In any industry. What I am going to do is present you with the truth. She has claimed she has 20 years of experience from a product development perspective. But the evidence shows us that she has about 3 years in product development titled roles besides the consulting. Now, she has also claimed she is a makeup artist. But the evidence shows us that she has only been a retail sales associate at the NARS beauty counter, which actually holds no license for aesthetics or cosmetology. And usually when you're at a retail sales counter, you're doing sales, product demonstrations. You're not doing a full face of makeup. You are not doing a tutorial. You're actually just demonstrating, like, this is the shade range for you. This is what they swatch like, and so on. It's not a makeup artistry platform. Like, you're not doing people's makeup for pay. Okay, this is a big question. When she refers to 20 years, is she talking about 20 years broadly in the beauty industry? Because that is honestly a more defensible interpretation of her experience. Retail artistry, fragrance interning, marketing, sales, consulting, and if you count all of it, she has been adjacently to the beauty industry for approximately 20 years. She's been with the beauty industry for approximately 20 years. That is accurate. But there is a meaningful and deliberate distinction between the time in beauty and the time in product development specifically. And here's why the distinction 100% matters in this particular case. She built a platform and eventually a paid masterclass on the specific promise that she brings product development expertise that consumers don't have access to anywhere else. The framing of 20 years of experience from a product development perspective is asking you to make a specific inference. And her own LinkedIn does not support the inference as well. This is contradiction number 1. Now we're going to turn to Dr. Christina Basias Androulakis. Her PhD is real. She graduated with a PhD. It is from the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. And it is genuinely impressive. Like this, she has really done an amazing job, like educating herself and going through the classes. She earned over years of rigorous academic work. And I want to be absolutely clear about that. But I want you to know precisely what it is because it does matter in this situation. Her undergraduate and her master's degrees are in English language arts and literature from Brooklyn College. Her doctorate is in philosophy with certificates in interactive technology and pedagogy. I had to look up how to say that word. And urban education policy studies and leadership. She spent over 11 years with the New York City Department of Education across a multitude of roles. And her final position was the Deputy Director of Citywide Technology, and it concluded in January of 2023. That's why when you look at their financial crisis, it was either at the end of 2022 or at the beginning of 2023. It's a little gray in that area, but we get the general timeline. She was also an adjunct professor with Brooklyn College from 2017 to 2023, and she held an equity advisory board seat at the New Schools Venture Fund. This was a not-for-profit education venture, and that was from June 2022 to January of 2024. Christina Basias Androulakis held 0 professional experiences in the beauty industry prior to co-founding Fempower Beauty in 2018. 0. There's nothing inherently wrong with entering a field that you don't have a lot of experience in, that you don't have a lot of formal study in. People do it all the time. They make pivots. Like, it's understandable. Some of the most valuable outside perspectives in any industry, they come from people who aren't insiders. They're more objective. They can see the bigger picture. And her skills in education, analysis, research, and communication, they are applicable to what Alexis and Christina have built together. But there is a specific difference between applicable skills and being presented as a domain expert. To make note of that, when they say doctor, it is her doctorate, her PhD. And the way that they use doctor operating in the Lipstick Lesbians brand postings and their positioning, particularly in the LLABs Masterclass, LLAB, LLabs, which we're going to get into the whole LLAB thing. It creates a specific impression about beauty and formulation credentials that the actual credential does not support. Her doctorate is not in chemistry, her doctorate is not in cosmetic science, and it is not in any kind of formulation. The credential is real. She does have a PhD, she does have a doctorate, but so we're going to go through claimed versus evidence. The doctor part as a part of a beauty expertise branding has been claimed. But she actually has a PhD in philosophy and education technology, 0 beauty or chemistry credentials. That is something to make note of. Let's talk about Fempower Beauty, which is the brand they didn't tell you about. Oh, honestly, it's a brand that hardly anybody has ever talked about ever. The first time I heard about Fempower Beauty was when Jen Love covered that Fempower Beauty was closing. So, because leaked labs for the vast majority of 1.75 million followers, it reads as like a debut brand. In a pre-series that they've been doing that they launched before they launched their first product, people were asking Alexis why she hadn't launched a beauty brand, and she said, oh, because the beauty industry is broken. And that made me believe that they only had this brand that they're coming out with, Leaked Labs, but no, they actually had Fempower Beauty.
Why haven't you launched anything yet?
Because the beauty industry is broken.
It made you think that this was the first time the Lipstick Lesbians were jumping into the cosmetic game and, launching their own brand. But it's not their first brand. In 2018, 4 years before their TikTok went viral. And this is also 7 years before Leaked Labs became a launch. Alexis and Christina, they co-founded Fempower Beauty. They launched 4 lipsticks, which was called the Genesis collection at $25 per lipstick. They had Adam, Eve, Serpent, and Lilith. It was a reimagining of biblical figures through a feminist lens, and Lilith became their best seller. They also launched a coaching service called the Affirmation Application. And this was designed to discourage negative talk, and it was designed to promote a more positive self-image, which was a generally interesting concept because women are very scrutinized in the beauty industry. In 2019, Sophia Amoruso awarded them $5,000 on Good Morning America. In 2022, they partnered with content creator Blair Imani, and it was on a collection of 6 dual-sided lip glosses called Smarter Lip Sets. And they also integrated lessons of racism and colorism directly into the packaging, which was pretty meaningful work at the time. And they invested, and I need you to sit with this number because it's a big one, almost $1 million of their own money into Fempower Beauty. 6 years in business. Now I want to ask you something directly. Before you watched this video, had you heard of Fempower Beauty? Had you seen it reviewed by an influencer on TikTok, on YouTube? Had you seen it in Sephora and Ulta or other major retailers, respectively? I hadn't either. I have been following the beauty community for 10 plus years. It's not a casual admission, it's a data point. It was a brand that never broke into major retail, ever. They didn't break into Sephora, they didn't break into Ulta, they didn't break into Target. But they never made it to an influencer review. I've never seen a review from an influencer about Fempower Beauty. It was a brand that was, by every available metric, living in the shadows. That's my humble opinion. But when they announced the closure in July of 2025, they framed it as like a pivot, that they were going in a different direction, that they would be hyper-focusing on their educational ventures like their Masterclass. And the audience just received it. They were like, okay, sounds good. But the reality was, there's been a lot of speculation behind why Fempower Beauty closed. It is speculated but unconfirmed, and I want to make note of that because it is speculation only. That some of the key reasons for closure had to do with financial struggle because it was a brand solely funded by Alexis and Christina, and they also had lack of funding. It is also speculated there may have been developmental challenges that bootstrapped the brand, making it difficult to maintain momentum while also balancing their respective jobs as well. Maybe Fempower Beauty just spread them too thin, and that's why they closed. But there really is no rhyme or reason for it that has really come to light. It's just all speculation and them saying it's a pivot for them. They're just walking away from it.
We literally almost hit bankruptcy.
Oh my gosh,
we were
6 months after our wedding.
Really close. You're listening, don't self-fund your beauty brand.
Right.
Don't do it in the way we did it. To clarify. I think to do a beauty brand correctly, just to launch, I think you would need at least $1 million.
Minimum. I would say baseline.
Right? And if you have that and you're comfortable doing that, then yes, go ahead and do that. We believed in ourselves so much, we just kept on pouring money into it over and over and over again. We had an understanding it would cost a lot of money, but the maintenance of the website, the fulfillment centers, the developing new products, my suggestion would be get some traction first. What we did, no one knew who we were. Right? We just really believed in ourselves so much. And I believed in Alexis and the way that she spoke about beauty. I knew that she had a literacy of beauty that was so deep and that could help so many people. And that's what we invested in, right? Along the way, finding the right people. Off the podcast, I can tell you guys so many stories about people that effed us over over. Just wanting money to milk founders really didn't come through with the promises that they said they would deliver on. It's really tough out there. I think there's a lot of people just doing money grabs for founders, and it's really hard to find the right team, especially when you're bootstrapped. When you have investment, it's easier to make these decisions and to move swiftly than when you have your own money.
And I shared this actually at the makeup show with someone who came up to us. He was really worried about taking on investment. I said, okay, it could be angel investment. It doesn't have to be institutional capital. And she said, won't I lose creative freedom? I said, well, sometimes your budget restricts creative freedom. Right. In the same way a theoretical investor would, like putting bumpers on to play bowling. Bumpers are a safety net. There's no shame in bumpers.
And also there's a chance that it could go your way.
Correct.
If you don't have the budget yourself, then there's no chance.
Right, exactly. I think that's what a lot of founders, the advice of like, yeah, you could bootstrap your brand, but just fail quickly. Don't give up. But maybe don't give up looks a little differently. Maybe it's not don't give up on the same idea. If something's not working, acknowledge it's not working and then move to something else. The second that we let go of the idea of Fempower, we go viral. And then all of a sudden the lipstick lesbians, right? Lesbians that own lipstick, because we started the handle because I wanted to get ourselves out there as the founders of this company, took completely new meaning. So we still didn't give up, but it looked a little different.
Fempower Beauty was founded in 2018. The Lipstick Lesbians TikTok was created in 2021. The audience that trusted them with leaked labs was built after Fempower Beauty was already failing. Platform that made leaked labs sell out pretty quickly. The trust that the people had was because of the Lipstick Lesbians audience. It was not because of Fempower Beauty. It wasn't built on a proven track record of bringing a successful brand to market. It was built on TikTok content. It was built on the Lipstick Lesbians brand. Beginning in 2021, when they went viral, 3 years into a brand that never broke through. They went viral for being the Lipstick Lesbians, not for being Fempower Beauty. And in the July 2025 Beauty Independent interview announcing the Fempower Beauty closure, Alexis said this, and I want to put it on screen for you so we can get the words exactly. The partners we bring on are very much going to be partners in what we perceive as the future of beauty. This isn't traditional in any context, nor was our ascent, nor is our existence on our platform. So we have to stay true to that. She's talking about future partnerships, and given that her LinkedIn notes that they started leaked labs in 2024, that was a year before this interview, I want to consider the possibility that she was possibly talking about leaked labs and partnerships, which means that she was announcing discreetly the closure of Fempower Beauty in one breath and then actively developing and announcing the next brand without us knowing. Without us knowing. Before the first product had officially launched, before Fempower had officially closed. It's not a crime to do this. It's just business, but it is also context for us to look at. Because a brand that was built on the promise of telling you things other people won't, you deserve to have known. I just found that quote so incredibly interesting, considering they were already in development with leaked labs for over a year. So let's look at the TikTok origin of the Lipstick Lesbians. So I want to briefly address how the TikTok platform and their platform in general started. It matters to understand their whole trust equation. Christina established the Lipstick Lesbians TikTok account in 2021. It was originally a nod to Fempower Beauty because they were lesbians and they had a lipstick brand, so they were called the Lipstick Lesbians, and they've honestly admitted to this. So in the beginning, it was primarily focused on their life as a couple. Then in December of 2022, Christina was filming Alexis walking through a Sephora, and it was something that she could apparently do almost with no preparation, was pick up a product, look at the ingredients, and break it down for you. And that was something that apparently she could just do. And the video, she was looking at the new Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Foundation, and that was the spark. That's the thing that took off for them on TikTok. And I want to acknowledge something in this instance is that this is a real skill to have, to be able to pick up a product that she's never really touched or experienced before without preparation, to look at the ingredients, look at the formula, look at its construction, and look at the manufacturer and be able to tell you inside details about this product. That's a real skill. The ability to read product at that level, it's crazy knowledge. It's earned knowledge. And it gave them 1.75 billion followers over their social media platforms. They have 1.2 on TikTok alone. And they had never had before, like the beauty space in general had never before had an insider who was apparently on their side, the consumer side, that had this type of knowledge to share with people. The viral content started in late 2022. The financial crisis that they've described, moving back in with Christina's parents, happened in late 22, early 2023. The TikTok platform was growing while Fempower Beauty was failing. And by the time they had, a combined 1.75 million followers, Fempower Beauty had been pretty quietly shuttered. It appears that the audience that trusted leaked labs never saw any of that with Fempower Beauty. They arrived after. Now we're going to talk about their masterclass, which is called the Let's Learn About Beauty. LLAB is what I'm thinking it's called. It is a certification. And this happened in early 2025. Let's Learn About Beauty was launched. It is a digital masterclass platform, and I'm going to say this. It is described as designed to educate anyone on the fundamentals of beauty. 8+ hours of content on product formulation, ingredient lists, and industry knowledge accessible at letslearnaboutbeauty.com. Chemistry expertise provided by Julio Pina. Their own course copy reads, gain insider knowledge, proven frameworks, and expert insights in this course that makes beauty products easy to understand. Cut through the hype, evaluate formulas like a pro, and discover what truly makes a product perform. Taught by viral beauty educators with chemistry expertise from Julio Pina, this program distills decades of industry experience into your ultimate beauty formulation guide. Decades of beauty industry experience. But here's the line that I want to focus on. They say certified. Upon completion, you become a part of a select network of LLAB certified beauty product developers. That's specific wording with a very specific professional meaning. They say certification. In any regulated professional context, that implies oversight. So, a governing body, an accreditation authority, or an industry or government recognition. And I searched thoroughly to see, is this accredited? Is this backed by some sort of like government accreditation, a body, anything like that? And there is no indication that LLAB offers certifications recognized by any state regulatory body, any cosmetic industry governing organization, or any accredited educational institution. There is no governing board. There's no external validation. This is a self-issued certificate designed, awarded, and named by the same people who created the course, which is Alexis and Christina. So we're going to look. They claim that graduates become the LLAB certified beauty product developers. That is such strong language. But in reality, the evidence shows us there is no accreditation from any state, industry, or academic governing body that is self-issued. Now, to be measured, because this is very important, a masterclass does not have to have an accreditation to be valuable. Once education operates across a very wide spectrum of formality, people learn real things from unaccredited courses every day. Like when you actually can claim that you are a makeup artist, but you have to be a practicing and a licensed cosmetologist or esthetician, they go over how to cut color and, hair and skin and nails, but they don't really go over makeup application when you go into those. So makeup artists, they genuinely do have to go out and find the other educational outlets. So people do it all the time. They do go to unaccredited courses and they take them every single day. But when you explicitly say that your graduates are certified beauty product developers, that language is doing something so deliberate, okay? It is creating the impression of a professional credential where none formally exists. And if you're a makeup artist, a brand founder, or a working professional who invested in this course believing it carried industry recognition, you were entitled to know that clearly upfront before you purchased the course. This is a distinction that I am drawing. Not that the course has no value, but that the language around what happens when you finish the course, it is asking you to infer something the course itself cannot deliver. You're not certified by a governing body. So we're going to look at leaked labs, the concept, the evidence, the launch, everything about leaked labs. Per Beauty Independent, the concept source, experimental formulas from manufacturers, innovations that have been presented at trade shows, passed over by brands, and released them directly to consumers in limited leaks every 4 to 8 weeks. Backed by True Beauty Ventures, effectively turning the beauty innovation pipeline inside out. The brand cited Volition Beauty, Beauty Pie, Refer, and From the Lab as models that they were following when they created Leaked Labs, according to this article. And on March 6th, Leaked Labs, they launched Leak 001, which was the Amplify Flexi Powder Discs. 4 shades, 1 tin with a sticker label. The Amplify Flexi Powders, they were a thin disc of pigment that came in 4 shades. They were housed in a small generic tin with a sticker labeling on it. All 4 discs totaled 0.07 ounces in weight. They told us it was inspired by perfectly supple lasagna. And the technology uses a carrageenan-based flexible membrane, which is a seaweed-derived polymer that reactivates when dampened with water or setting spray. It was $34 plus shipping. It sold out pretty quickly. People couldn't get their hands on it fast enough. Now, let me give you the industry context that the launch narrative did not include. And I've covered this so much on my channel lately, so I definitely encourage you to go check out my entire playlist on Leaked Labs as well. Okay. We have Kevin James Bennett, who is a brand and product development consultant with nearly 4 decades of industry experience. He surfaced a detail that is not getting enough attention to the entire Leaked Labs conversation. So he has a website called In My Kit, and he wrote a piece on Leaked Labs, and he published this on March 26th. He said, L'Oreal has held patents on this type of polymer film technology since around 2010. So the Leaked Labs, never been done before framing, oversells the innovation while notably omitting why no one has used the technology. L'Oreal has held patents on this type of polymer film technology since 2010. So the innovation orphan that they keep narrating to us, the promise that this formula was being kept from consumers, that the brands and labs have been sitting on it, that it's revolutionary, but nobody's picked it up. It requires a specific asterisk next to it. That's a mouthful. It is a formula that has been technically possible for over 15 plus years. Digest that for a minute. It has been technically possible for over 15 plus years by labs, by brands, and it still did not reach commercial marketing. It has been passed over repeatedly, and this is for reasons that the paying customers discovered the hard way, to be honest. Megan Cox, who is the founder of Anakos Labs, told Beauty Independent, the technology behind something like the Flexi Powder isn't new to those of us on the lab side. It's been on trade show floors for a few years already. And Joe Anthony, who is the founder of Pensive Beauty, he addressed the core premise directly. He said selling them as leaks implies the innovation pipeline is a vault full of finished gems that brands are too slow or too corporate to release. The reality is that most formulas in development are iterations on the same foundational chemistry and for what customers should pay. They should pay for finished, tested, stable products with demonstrated performance, not for the novelty of seeing something early. Now, the customer response. Customers noted inconsistency with the disc thicknesses, discs ripping on first application, wet and dry, minimal pigmentation when it was applied dry. Like, people were literally scared to apply this to their face because it was scratching their face. Patchy results when wet. So it didn't have an even application. It was a product that when it was left to exposed air, it degraded. This was something that James Bennett had noted in his article. And this is because the carrageenan polymer absorbs atmospheric moisture and must be stored bone dry in an airtight container after every use. Every single use. This is also something that Javon Ford brought up as well. Makeup artists, they raised a huge and more separate issue, not just with like the quality of the product, but the fact that if you use alcohol to sanitize it, which is standard professional practice to be able to sanitize your makeup so you can use it on multiple faces, it caused complete product failure when you used alcohol. The disc disintegrated. Others noted that it closely resembled the kinds of samples manufacturers distribute to brands during product development. They are called showcase samples. Sometimes these samples are given at little or no cost. This raised a completely different question. Why were consumers paying $34 for what appeared to function like a lab sample? That is not a communication problem. That is a credibility problem. So when the backlash escalated, the Lipstick Lesbians posted what they call their State of the Union address, which has since been removed, and we can understand why. And we're going to audit it a little bit because there were a couple of claims in here, and I have a whole video just like me going through the State of the Union address, but we're actually going to audit it this time because I didn't do that in my last in that video. The problem here is not just the logic, okay? It is the language. In their own earlier leaked labs messaging, they used words like lab sample when they were describing their product, which I have another video all about the breakdown of their PR like statements that they made versus what they were commenting, and it was just also contradictory. But anyway, the language is all theirs. Every single bit of it is theirs, and it's not a critic's characterization. It's not a critic like translating something. It's all from leaked labs. And the feedback survey, which they finally sent out, it arrived weeks after they had launched the product, after a reformulation had already been publicly discussed with, Alexis in public interviews. And this survey, it asked customers to explain how the product could be improved and what would make it stand out more. This is a functional definition of asking paying consumers, to complete your product development work. In standard focus groups, participants are typically compensated because consumer feedback is very, very valuable, and it has been documented as having a huge economic value, and leaked labs inverted that model entirely. Consumers paid probably about $40 in total to provide feedback. If the product underperformed, which obviously it did because there was tons of backlash, the consumer absorbed the financial loss while the brand collected data. Claim number 2, the tone. The cut, which covered the State of the Union as a video that doesn't seem to have gone to plan. Kevin James Bennett described it as a condescending and combative State of the Union. Comments were flooding in. This made it worse. No need to talk down to us. You just don't get it. And as the response to paying customers is an interesting choice. Jen Love, who has been a longtime beauty influencer on YouTube, she reviewed the product and she offered nuanced feedback. She watched the State of the Union and said this video was essentially saying, we don't want feedback like that. And to me, that shows you weren't looking for feedback at all. They were just looking for validation. And then there was this. When critical reviews started to surface, the brand liked a comment that stated that people who don't work in the beauty industry just don't get it. Sit with that for a minute. This is a platform built on the explicit promise of making the beauty industry transparent and understandable to everyone. Their value proposition, the content that earned them 1.75 million followers, was the democratization of insider knowledge, the removal of gatekeeping. And when paying customers sent critical feedback, the response implicitly was, you don't have the expertise to evaluate this. And this is not a communication error. This is a contradiction at the structural level. Days later, they pinned a comment acknowledging that the video missed the mark. And they noted they were traveling and would respond to questions soon. And on April 1st of 2026, they responded formally to the controversy. And I have a whole video dissecting that as well. Many who watched it described it as more word salad, that they felt like they were being gaslit. And it was a consistent pattern of addressing the framing of the criticism rather than the substance to it. They addressed the framing of what people were calling out, but they didn't actually answer anybody's questions. The verdict. So, who are the lipstick lesbians? They are two genuinely intelligent women who identified something real, that there was a gap between what happens inside of beauty and then what consumers are ever allowed to know. They built a platform on closing that gap. And for millions of people, the content had and continues to have really great value, genuine value. Alexis does possess meaningful industry knowledge, okay? Her ability to be able to walk into a store, pick up a product and analyze it, even though she's never used it on her face, she's never really touched the formulation before, and correctly decode that formula, it is amazing. It's not theatrical. She's able to do this. This is something that she has been able to do through her years of experience. It is earned. The content is worth something. It really is. But the 20 years of product development experience framing does not survive a forensic audit of her own LinkedIn. The distinction between the time in the beauty industry and the time in product development specifically is not a minor one, particularly when you are building a paid educational platform around that expertise. Christina's PhD, it is real, very hard-earned, very impressive, and it is in philosophy, education technology, and policy. It's not in chemistry, it is not in cosmetic science, it's not in formulation. The way Doctor operates in their brand positioning creates an inference that the credential itself does not support. Fempower Beauty, their first brand, received nearly $1 million of Christina and Alexis's own money over 6 years, and it never broke into major retail. It never broke through and became anything big, obviously, because it closed. It didn't penetrate the influencer review ecosystem either. Trust that the lipstick lesbians have gained through their TikTok platform is what made Leaked Labs sell out, not built on a proven track record of bringing a successful product to market. It was built 100% on their TikTok content created during the time when Fempower was failing. by an audience that, had they ever heard of it? And then the LLAB certification. The language has no formal anything, accreditation behind it, but they call graduates LLAB certified product developers. It implies a professional accreditation, a professional designation that no governing body has authorized. And Elite Labs, it launched with the promise of finished goods. The founder was already discussing reformulation in interviews of those goods that had just started arriving to customers. The technology was not as novel as claimed. L'Oreal holds the patent to it and has held a patent to it for over 10 years. Over 15 years, since 2010. And the formula has been seen, evaluated, and passed over by many in the beauty industry for over a decade. The framing that the industry was keeping it from consumers was, at best, a significant oversimplification. And when paying customers raised legitimate concerns, the response positioned them as people who lacked knowledge, as people who lacked the sophistication to understand what they had bought. Whether all of this reflects deliberate intent, whether it was a strategic misdirection, or the compounding effect of unchecked assumptions, I cannot tell you, okay? This is not a conclusion the evidence supports me making. What the evidence does support is this. When you build a platform on the promise of unfiltered truth, when you have told 1.75 million people that you will expose what the beauty industry hides, the bar for your own claims is higher than everyone else's because you said it there. That is the receipt. Thank you guys so much for staying with me through this entire video. I know it was a lot, and it was a lot to digest myself. And I really want to be clear about one more thing before you sign off. The video is not a verdict on who Alexis and Christina are as people. I don't know them personally. I've never talked to them before. I'm not in a position to judge their intentions, and I'm not trying to. What I'm doing is, and what this channel does, is look at what is claimed, look at what the evidence shows you, and give you the full picture so that you can make that informed decision yourself, that informed conclusion. Everything I cited is going to be linked in the description bar down below. The Beauty Independent reporting, the cuts breakdown, Kevin James Bennett's article, everything. It's going to be in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I get to see you in my next video. Bye.